Hey, fellow traveler. Welcome to the Third Eye Awakening podcast, a show where we talk all about spiritual and psychic awakening, magic, the shift from 3D to 5D, star seeds, ascension, multiple timelines, multiple dimensions, the universe, the multiverse, the Akashic records, all the good things. I am your host, Amy Belair, and I'm so glad to have you here with me today. Okay, let's do this. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Third Eye Awakening. Today I am so excited to welcome Jordie Taylor to the show. Jordie is a listener of the podcast. We connected like 2 years ago. I think it was from the flood of people that came from the swarm from Sam Tripoli, and Jordie just totally stuck out to me. He was just one of those like Facebook icons that I was like, oh yeah, I don't know. He really stuck with me. And I think I invited him on the podcast and I think he was like, no, I'm going to pass. But now the time has come for us to connect and talk. And I'm so excited. And Jordie recently shared with me a dream that he had where I was in it. And I was like, well, duh, that's how we know each other. It's on the astral level. So Jordie is a professional wrestler based out of Vancouver, British Columbia, and he has been basically slaying it recently in his just doing the inner work and confronting limiting beliefs. So we're going to talk all about it. Thank you, Jordie, so much for being here. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited. This is it's a nerve-wracking experience, but awesome. Still trying to learn to find that voice, and yeah, it's exciting either way.
I'm so glad that you are using this as a platform to find that voice.
I mean, it resonates with me very deeply. So I mean, it's one of the things that I guess like it's called to me ever since I had my awakening, right? So I mean, yeah, I don't think there's any better place to start and do so.
Yay! So will you share with us about your spiritual awakening and how that journey has been for you?
Yes. So mine was about physical pain. I was, ever since I was like young, I had like a lot of, again, limiting beliefs where I wasn't ever shown a lot of love, I guess, like where my mom had a lot of demons, my dad was busy with work, and my biological dad left when I was a kid. So like with the idea that a kid's only like shown that they're lovable or whatever the case through like time and energy spent, and I didn't have any of that. So I was like basically just like pushed on the caretaker role. So my whole life was spent basically like, I'm expendable, I don't really matter, I'm not like lovable per se. Like the only way that I'm able to be lovable is by doing tasks for people. So like basically just through actions. So that carried out through my entire life, and like into wrestling too. So into wrestling, like I've always, well, before wrestling, I was like the most timid, nervous little guy. Like anytime like anybody would do something wrong to me, I would say sorry to them. And like I was the funny kid, I was real skinny, whatever. So that carried on into wrestling. And so wrestling was like the big thing that got me out of my shell. But still, I always had this like, I'm not good enough energy to with me to everything. And I had no idea about like trauma or whatever the case. Like I thought I was fine. I thought it was just normal life. But so 2020, it was January 2020, I was in a ladder match, like a four-way ladder match, and the move is called a senton. It's where the person jumps on you with their back to your chest, and it was a ladder match, obviously. So it was like two guys on the ground and then two people jumping on the ladder, and the ladder was like spread this way. And I remember having a conversation with the person beside me. He's like, "Dog, you got to hold your hands like this." No, I was like, I had my hands like this, and the ladder was underneath me. And he's like, "You got to have your hands like this." We're sitting there conversation. It was like I can feel it so like vividly, because it was the moment right before like the worst pain of my life. And so they jumped on us, and they're like two almost 300-pound people, and my chest instantly caved in, and like it was the worst pain ever, and like I couldn't function, I couldn't move, I thought I was gonna die, and it was like for the next 3 months it was like pure hell and agony, and like I had to confront like wrestling going away, and like what am I gonna do thereafter wrestling, and yeah, it was just like I had to like sit there with the pain, and like I'm assuming that was like a lot of karmic debt being paid in the physical sense. And also like my heart was just purely closed because I didn't love myself and I didn't love anything like in my life. I didn't like, I took for granted everything that was happening in my life all the time. Because again, I'm not worthy for stuff. So it like physically cracked open my heart is what the way I feel. And so I spent the next 3 months just like trying to pop it out little by little. So I would like sneeze and it would come out a little bit. and like it was the worst pain I ever felt, and I couldn't sleep, I couldn't do anything. So it was like I was forced to. I still wrestle, could be an idiot, whatever. Like I'm not gonna stop doing the thing that I love, but like in between that, it was like just pure pain, pure agony, and like I was sitting in my family's house, like my sister's house on the island. That part doesn't matter. But I was sitting there with my family, and like my chest was caved in, and I was losing strength in my arms and my legs, and I had like shocks going down constantly. And I was just sitting there with my family one day, and I was like, I'm gonna have to give up wrestling, which sucks. And I had a show like 3 days from then, and so I'm just sitting there, and I'm like, this is like the worst. What am I gonna do? I spent my entire life doing this. And I looked around my family, and I was like playing with my nephew, and I didn't even have the strength to lift him up, and he was 4. So I was like trying to throw him and trying to pretend like I didn't hurt, because I didn't want to tell anybody, because I didn't want to like burden anybody with like, oh, I'm so fucked up that I can't even like walk or like think straight or sleep or do anything. So I was just laying there, sitting there, or rather sitting there. No, actually, okay. That was the end. The second one, it happened twice actually. So I had a wrestling show with my chest caved in, and my sister brought me home and to their house, and I was sitting there. This is the first time I was sitting there, and everyone went to sleep, and I didn't want to burden anyone. And like when I was at the match, I popped my chest a little bit more, and it kind of like it messed it up even more so. And so it went like kind of into my back, because like the ribs are connected into your back. And I was just sitting at like my sister's house, and it was like midnight, and everyone's asleep. And I went into shock, because I was like, I was in so much pain. I'm like, I'm probably gonna die tonight. I was like, I don't want to tell anybody, because I don't want to make anyone feel bad. I'm gonna die, whatever the case. So I just like let it happen, and then like I popped it, and then I went to sleep that night, and I woke up, and everything felt like decent, whatever the case. So then I just like continued on, but then I had this thought, is like, I'm surrounded by love here. Like no matter what, like I have my family, and they all love me very dearly. And it's like, if the worst case scenario happened and I couldn't wrestle, like I have love around me. So I mean, what's more than that, right? And so I just continued on popping it out little by little, again experiencing the worst pain ever. And then shows were kind of weird in 2020, because it was like everything closed down, which is like, yeah, like shows started in January, and then they closed down, and then they continued on through near the end of the year. And so I got a herniated disc in the back of my neck. And so that one was bad, because it made me like start throwing up all the time. And so so the first one where I was sitting there, I thought I was going to die. And then later on in the year, I had the chest caved in, I had the herniated disc, and my back was starting to go numb, and my chest was fucked up. And like I was like, I couldn't even do this really. I was just losing strength constantly. And again, I was sitting there with my nephew and my family. And again, like the thing I said, where I was throwing him up and I couldn't really do it. And then like I just thought to myself, I'm like, if I gotta retire, I gotta retire. Whatever, that's cool. Like if I have to like change what I'm gonna do in terms of my wrestling career, I'm going to just be the best wrestling manager that I can be. And so like I'm just gonna accept that I have to retire. And so I went to work like 3 days later, and like that was the first time I ever truly surrendered. Like truly, the first one I think I got a little taste of it, and this one I actually fully surrendered. And then I went to work, and so like I did dancing. Like I had like a really bad low before I came back to wrestling and started doing all this in like 2017. So I started doing dancing, and I didn't know why at the time, but it's because I had so much stuck energy that I had to like start moving it. So my body asked me to start dancing. And I was at work, and I like was like rotating my neck, and I like I'm really good at like listening to my body and learning how to like pop it or whatever. So I moved my neck this way, and I kept my neck bone stiff, and it kind of like met in the middle, and it like popped properly. And like when it did that, like my body kind of went unnumb. My chest was still fucked up, but my body kind of went unnumb, and I was like, I can wrestle. And like I literally just gave it all away for the first time ever, the thing that I love the most. And then I just gave it away, and then like I kind of got it back. And then so I knew that I had an inner strength, I guess, to like start helping me like heal myself. But I didn't know at that extent like what that meant. I just knew that like I could fix stuff with kind of like faith or whatever. And then so wrestling shows were taken away, and I know now that it was taken away from me because I needed to get rid of wrestling so I could learn to love myself the way I love wrestling. Because my whole life I've only like looked at myself as wrestler Jordie. I was like, I need to look at like my wrestling gear or like my entrance or all this. Like I loved wrestler Jordie so much, but I didn't even think about or care about, because who loved normal Jordie? That guy was like, no one started looking at me until I started being wrestler guy. So then wrestling shows were taken away, and I still had my chest fucked up, whatever. my back was starting to get a little better, and like wrestling shows were taken away like in November. So that happened in January 2020, and then November 2020, I was sitting at home because shows were canceled again, and I was like, I'm just like, I was on it was fucking Christmas Eve, and I was just sitting there, and I'm like, I'm just like, my family didn't want to see me or whatever the case, in the sense that like the news told us we're not allowed to see family, blah blah blah. So I'm sitting there just like really sad that I didn't have anybody to hang out with, whatever. So I'm like, I'm just gonna send Merry Christmas to every single person I could find for the next 16 hours. So I just did that. I just started fucking like messaging happy birthday on Facebook to every single person I could find. And I got like the most intense, like loving feeling that made me just burst in tears. I was like so happy, just like sharing love with people. I was like, that feeling is like, I've done every single drug there is, except for heroin, but like that feeling right there was like better than all the drugs that I had done. So like I knew like instantly, I'm like, the power is like it's inside. Like there's so much fucking like that love feeling is addiction. Like it's in my body. Then like it's part of me. And then it started like I just wanted to like give that love to everyone. But then I realized that like, and I didn't realize it right there, but I had to give that love to myself first. So wrestling like kind of was gone for a little bit, and then I had to like meet myself, which was very difficult. And so I started like my girlfriend, she like I would say sorry all the time for everything, and I was doing the dishes for her one day because that's how I like get love, was like, oh, I'm doing a service for you, love me please. And then I was saying sorry constantly, and then she's like, why are you fucking saying sorry so much? I don't even know what you're talking about. That's just what a nice person does. And she's like, no, that's just trauma. Like you don't feel like you're good enough, so you're just constantly saying you're sorry. And I was like, oh shit, I got fucked up stuff inside me. And then so like I had to start like just dealing with like the fact that, and I didn't want to admit it even. It's like, I don't have these problems. Like I'm just saying sorry again, like I said, right? And it's like I had to start like confronting why I felt the way I felt about myself. And then I realized very clearly that I didn't love myself at all. And that like the chest thing, like the caved in chest, and I eventually did pop it all out little by little. I was very lucky in the sense that when I was a kid, I had an injury on my chest where I was riding a bike down a hill and I smacked my face on the cement, and like I smacked my chest at the same time. And ever since then, it started like popping in my sternum. So I got very lucky in the sense that I could pop it out thereafter. But yeah, like it just started like I had to confront Jordie, the non-wrestler guy, because wrestler Jordie was gone. And like it was, I think that was the key, was I was so confident in one aspect and the other aspect was just like nothingness. And it started with like, we're going to take everything away from you, so you have to meet yourself for the first time ever. And like it, now I know that it was the most beneficial thing I've ever done. It was like, it's beautiful. And it all started with the most pain I've ever felt. And like, I would do it again because it was absolutely magical, even though it sounds kind of sadistic that I would cave my chest in again, just so I could get to the, like the learning aspect of it. Yeah. Like all of that, like I knew that there was a higher force in a sense before that, but I never really like knew it. Like I never had like a direct contact or message, whatever the case. And so like I started to heal my caved in chest, and then I healed my neck, and like it got to a point where I had no pain, and it's like I thought like that my whole like fucking my whole career, whatever the case, had been taken away from me. And then I started to realize that like I could heal myself, be it physically and then emotionally too. But yeah, the whole thing was just like the most physical, brutal pain to get to the insides of myself. And like it all started from just like surrender and faith. And like it all just like came to me once I gave it all away. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever witnessed. And like that's what's speaking to you today, is like that, all that healed shit. And I'm not fully healed, whatever the case, but it's like it was from 2020 till now to get me to see myself. And nobody ever saw me, so I didn't even know how to see myself. And like now wrestler Jordie is equivalent to non-wrestler Jordie, and it's a wonderful place to be in. Sorry, I just rambled forever there.
No, that was amazing. That was an amazing story. And like, I mean, there's so many things that stuck out to me about it, but the first thing that I want to comment on is just the part where, you know, your girlfriend reflected back to you that like, no, dude, you have trauma. That's trauma talking. And she's reflecting back to you, and you're like, what? I have fucked up shit in there? Like, no, I don't. And
Yeah.
that part blows my mind all the time, because I think that's how most people are operating, that they are in such acute pain, existential pain, 100% of the time. but we've been so brainwashed to believe that this is like a normal state of being. It's common, but it's not normal, that we even feel a disconnect from it within ourselves. Like there's nothing, I don't have trauma in there. But now you're able to speak about it and be like, of course I had trauma and I can trace it back. And like, I see where it came from. But at the time there was that disconnect, right? I think that's I think a lot of people experience that. And then also I just really relate. And I think that's it's one of the biggest childhood traumas that we have, is not being seen by our parents. It's a huge trauma, like such a primal wound, a sacral chakra wound of like, I was born and the people that was born to whatever degree, because it varies for everybody, don't see me, don't have time for me. And then we interpret it as children as don't love me, don't want me, I'm a burden, all that. And it totally, because it's so primal and it kind of starts in infancy, if not earlier, then it winds itself away around our identity as it's forming. And we don't even like realize that it isn't a fact. Like it feels so deeply ingrained that it's like, might as well be an actual real true fact, even though
It becomes one with you, right?
yeah. Yeah. And so I'm really glad that you are at a place now where you can see that. And I'm just sorry. I'm sorry for you. And I'm sorry for everyone who I'm super emotional right now too. I gotta say, it's March and the energies collectively with all the astrology and everything is just so intense, and all the solar flares, all the things. It's so intense. I personally am super emotional. And then in my program, Heart Star Creator, we are like moving into the sacral chakra, and I don't want to touch it with a 10-foot pole, to be honest, which tells me that like there is so much collectively and like even within myself that is ready to be seen and healed. And it's like, it's just so painful. It's such a painful wound to have that deep feeling of being rejected by the people who are supposed to want you the most.
Yeah, right. Like I think that's the most work for me. Like that's the one I continuously hear is sacral chakra. So I know it's the one that I'm still having issues with. But yeah, like I know now that my family was just running their own programs and nobody knows how to do anything different than what they're doing, right? Like my mom again had a lot of demons in her closet, so she was busy escaping herself all the time. And then that's what I eventually started doing. And like that was kind of like leading up to it, where my mom had a lot of issues. My biological dad left me before a year, but then I had my stepdad come into my life, and he was more or less one of the saviors of like helping me like be seen, in the sense that he never like left my side, which is a wonderful thing. But like leading up to the spiritual awakening, from when I was like 20, ever since I was like 16, I started like smoking weed or whatever the case, like the first drug I could find and get my hands on, I was going to do it. And then like it started like when I was 23 and I got introduced to wrestling. I was a little timid guy, and I was again like just very very soft spoken. I wouldn't speak my mind to anyone. I would diffuse everyone with funniness, whatever funniness I could find. And then like I just got to a point where, because I had nothing, I never like released anything. So I started taking steroids in 2013 along with other drugs. Like I would do every drug I could find. So I would just like I was just doing all the drugs I could find constantly, like coke, like crack, whatever, like meth and shit, just like all the hard stuff. And along with steroids, and as soon as I took steroids, it made me crazy, and it made all this shit come out. So I went from like little bitch timid Jordie to like psycho crazy. I'm gonna get my shit in on everybody now. Like you fuck around with me, fuck you, Jordie. And then like I was just, my intention at that time was just I'm gonna party myself to death, because like I always like, there was a thing in my head that's like, I'm gonna live till I'm 28 and that's cool with me. So I would just like party and go crazy and just go mental all the time. And like, it was my nephew being born that was like, I gotta step up and stop being such a dipshit, because if I don't, then I'm just gonna like lead him down the same path as I am. in a sense, right? So like I was just doing all the drugs I could find, escaping myself constantly, and again, like not knowing that it was trauma that was keeping me just trying to escape from myself. So that was like 28 when I started to like semi clear myself out and just like stop all the drugs. But at that point, I had like alienated everyone from like liking me because I was just such a douchebag. And so it was like 28 to like 30. And it's funny because 33 was when I had the spiritual awakening, when I had my chest caved in. So it's like I know that like that was that's a common occurrence as to when people start having said awakening is 33. So yeah, so it was like 28 to 33 was like my cocooning period to like get to that physical pain of like cracking my chest open. It's like now it's so crazy in the sense that like I healed the caved in chest and like the herniated disc in my back. And then since then, I've had two more herniated discs in my back. And the weirdest thing was like the one that I had, I popped it back in and I didn't know that I could do that. Like it just kind of happened randomly. And then it was like 6 months ago, I was in a match and somebody had me in a sleeper hold, which is like sleeper hold like this. And then you grab their head in a jawbreaker and you like drop down to your ass and it like kind of gets them off of you. But the person came down with me on all their weight and it popped a disc in the middle of my spine. And like, it was like just the worst pain. But like at that point, I was like, I don't even have any fear because like I know that I've popped it back in myself. And I've known that I've been able to like heal myself just with the power of like believing that I can. Because at this point it happened like 3 times. So I knew that it was possible. And so I didn't even worry about it at all, aside from the fact that like knowing that it sucked. And I wrestled the next day in a cage match. And I remember sitting in the mirror and I was like looking right before the match and I was like, well, God, I'm either going to come out of this match paralyzed or I'm going to be just all right. And then like I came out of the match and I was fine. It was very lucky in that sense. But then I was just driving to work a couple months later and I was doing a lot of Kundalini yoga every day because I was just like, and I couldn't sit properly, so I couldn't like sit and like fucking like just stay properly all like for like an hour or whatever the case. So like Kundalini yoga, whatever, like moving your back and shit and whatever. And so I was just driving to work one day and I pushed my back on the side of my chair like this, and it popped in, and then I felt like light go from like up my spine, down my spine, through my arms, through my legs at the same time. And it was like one of the most euphoric feelings I ever felt. Wow. And then like the pain just like stopped immediately. And like ever since then, like now it's crazy because I've had all these injuries and now I have zero pain in my body. Like now I don't even have any fear. Like I know 100%. It's like some Wolverine shit. I don't know if like we can all do it. We can all heal ourselves. I fully believe that if we just believe, right? Like that's the thing is like, I always kind of had like, when I was 5 years old, I don't know, this sounds kind of arrogant, whatever, but I was like, I know at 5 years old, because that's when I started like wrestling. I'm like, I'm gonna be the biggest fucking star in the world. And like it's something that like just stuck with me forever. So like even though there was all these like limiting beliefs and like all this like crazy shit going on around me, there was that one thing. And that's why I think like wrestler Jordie was so important to me, where other Jordie was just kind of useless. But then yeah, anyway, going back to it, like when I popped that shit in my back for the last time, and like I just knew that I could do it. And then like as soon as I did it, it like reinforced. I'm like, I can fucking do anything that I believe in. And like here's another thing too, which was right before 2020. It was like almost the end of like 2019 or the middle of 2019. I started dabbling in microdosing because I just wanted to like start like rewiring my brain, because with wrestlers you get hit in the face a lot, blah blah blah. Like you get hit in the head and like the wires will disconnect or whatever the case. So I started like just sitting there doing microdose. I microdosed every day for 2 weeks. And I remember just sitting in my mirror, like sitting in my room, looking in my mirror, doing push-ups while I was just sitting there microdosing, whatever. And I just had this thought, I'm like, I'm the fucking best. And then so I'm like, I'm gonna start telling people tomorrow that I'm the best. And then the next day I started doing that. And then it was like a couple weeks later, I got a movie role in WWE, which is crazy. It was a small role, but it was a role nonetheless. It was something that I wanted to do for my entire life. I started getting a bunch of championships. And then I got on WWE TV. And again, it was a little role, but it was like, that's the thing I've been working for since I was 5 years old. And like those, all those little things, it was like belief, 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 belief. And then like the conquering limiting beliefs. And like, that's where I am now, is like, now I'm getting to the point where I can tell when something is in my head and I'm latching onto it. And that's the main key, is I latch on to like the limiting beliefs of I'm not good enough in this sense, or like this emotion is like it's running my life or whatever. Like if I'm sad, then I'm going to sit here and be sad because I don't deserve to be happy, you know, that kind of thing. And like all of the things I just rambled on were like just little steps in the sense of like making me believe in myself while talking.
No, everything that you're saying is so amazing. And like,
I jump around. Sorry, I get hit in the face a lot.
No, you're doing perfect. It's the just exactly what you said, like that you basically, from what I'm understanding, like the way that you explain that, like you're microdosing, you're working actively towards the thing that you love the most. You are aware of you're aware that you have limiting beliefs. You're aware that you have trauma. You're feeling more and more reinforced that like, okay, I have trauma. I have physical trauma. I have mental, emotional trauma. I have limiting beliefs, but none of them actually have to hold me back. I don't have to be afraid of them. So when they come up, I can and so like you're rewiring your brain literally, and then it frees up the accessibility of like 100% commitment to the idea, like I'm the best. And then you commit to it. And all of a sudden your hologram changes to be like, okay, yeah, you're the best. Here are these things that really mean something to you. And I think that that is the exact energy of this year, that, you know, things that in the manifestation world would have taken us a longer time before have the potential to come that quickly now. And as I say this, like it's not like my manifestations are happening instantly. Like there's all there, I don't want to give anybody the idea that if you're not instant manifesting, if you're not having the feeling like you're the best, and then the very next day you start getting things that you've been working towards since you were 5 years old, that you're somehow failing at manifesting. That's not what is happening for me right now, but I can feel that that is the potential of what's available to us energetically this year. I have to ask you, do you feel like your heart chakra is like open and balanced?
I know right now that that's what I'm being called to do, is open it. Like I have this vision in my head of my heart and like bursting with green, like luminescent energy. Like I can feel it, like just like it's on the precipice of like opening. And like I know that like the sacral chakra and my heart chakra, those are the two that I need to work on. And like that one, I can feel more and more every day. Like I just recently started like contemplating the idea that like, again, like we are all, I didn't say that, I don't know why I said again, but we are all one. So why am I not showing everyone the same love that I show myself every day? Like no one has like, it's the idea that I need to protect myself because I'm scared of the outside world. So I'm just going to like be rigid and have my back against the wall and just wait for whatever the case, and just like kind of like just be not good to like I'm not like a bad person, I'm a nice person, but like the idea that like I'm not open to everyone and I don't give everyone the benefit of the doubt and know that they're all running programs and traumas. And like if I'm to the place where I am now, that's only because I recently just did a bunch of work. And like that's where like everyone is, right? Like everyone's still just in their programs and their traumas. So it's like it's me just like giving people more empathy and sympathy and understanding and compassion as to where they are. And like that's why I've started looking at everyone just the last couple of days even, of like, why am I not treating everyone the exact way in which I'm treating myself, which is like just giving myself the deepest understanding and compassion. So like, and ever since I started doing that, like I felt relationships started getting better, and just like daily interactions with people. Like, yeah, so like, cause we are all the same. And like, I can feel more and more little by little that I'm starting to like sit there in that energy. And like, I think that that's what's opening my heart more so. But yeah, that's the thing that I feel is right now that I'm working on, is getting that damn heart open.
I feel it so much. I feel like your heart is open because I feel super heart connected with you, right since we started talking. And I mean, I talk to people all the time. I do this all the time. It's an unusual degree of heart connection, to the point where when you were telling your story, I was feeling like I could just cry. And again, that's also unusual for me. I'm a Scorpio, so I cry in private only. And like it was like really close to the surface. And I feel so what I have come to understand is that the heart connection is we have 3 telepathic centers. The first one is the sacral, and the second is the heart, and the third is the third eye. And those are the 3, it's like a 3-pronged plug. That's how we connect with each other and how we actually are designed to be in communication. And I feel very like synced up on the same heart wavelength as you. It's really a cool feeling.
Yeah, that definitely is. Damn.
So I feel like your heart is probably more open than you're realizing. Like your intention over the last few days of like opening it up is definitely working.
Yeah, well, that makes me very happy. I have this thing where like it's always like attacking myself in the sense that like I need to work hard, and I'm a Libra, so balance is key. And so like that's the funny thing with the idea that like I was super hard into wrestling, and then wrestling got taken away, and then I was super hard into finding myself in spirituality. And then once I felt like I got to a certain level, then I went back to super hard into wrestling, and then I just stopped with spirituality, and then I went back into spirituality, and now I'm like kind of melding of the two. And like so I work very hard. I get very little sleep, and that's the thing that I'm learning to balance because like I love the things that I do, and like I find that sleep just like it's boring in the sense that I want to get back to the cool shit that I'm doing. So like
That's so funny.
I'm very hard on myself with like is my heart open? Am I like where I'm supposed to be? And I don't give myself enough space to just be where I am a lot of the time. And so yeah, like with my heart, it could very well be more open than I'm giving myself credit for. But I'm like, it's not a fucking 100%. We need to get to fucking work right now.
You're like a taskmaster to yourself.
Yeah, yeah. Very high standard.
Yeah. It's Do you resonate with having any like galactic aspects or any starseed aspects?
I've been I don't know for sure, but I've been called to the lion and Lyran very much in the last like say almost year. Like
Mhm.
I started to grow my hair and my beard, and everyone says that I look like a lion. And like just yeah, like a lady that I was talking to in the last like year, she told me that one of my spirit animals was a lion, and like it's just that's the thing that resonates with me. And like I bought this pendant from India, and I thought that it was a monkey, which was so stupid, but ended up turned out that it was a lion. And like as soon as because I wanted to wear it for wrestling because like I'm gonna start embodying this lion energy. And I look at it, I'm like, this is a motherfucking lion. What am I even doing here? Like I didn't want to wear it because I thought it was a monkey. And then like turns out it's actually the lion that I'm trying to like that I'm embodying. And then like yeah, like now it's engulfed my entire wrestling persona. So I feel very deeply that Lirin, but I'm not entirely sure. And I don't want to be the guy that's like, I'm this when I might not be.
Right, right. I definitely feel the Lyran too, and I feel strong Pleiadian, like the two they're and they both like the lion in astrology is related to Leo and the fifth house and the heart. And then I feel like a really strong Pleiadian heart connection as well. Um, I would love to hear more about how you are identifying your limiting beliefs. How does it come through for you?
Like for lately, it's just been like being right here, right now, like just in the moment as much as I can. And just
Mm.
like whenever I have something come up, and it usually comes back to like a fear of death in some sort. It's like I fear the death of where I am now, or I fear the death of like, say, if I don't have enough money at the moment, it's like I fear the death of say like the situation that I'm in or the life that I'm in. Or like it all just comes back to like little fears of conquering death. And I realize that like I'm safe. I'm never gonna die. Essentially, I'm just my energy is just gonna change forms in some sense. So I'm not really gonna die. And like I do believe that if we have a birth date, we have a death date. So I'm just here until I'm here. And like there's no reason for me to be scared of anything. So like every time something comes up, that's what it seems to be at the root core is like death and like fear of death in some sort. And like that, yeah, I think that's for the most part what it is. And like when I have done things, like it seems to be aside from that, that like I'm really just looking for love, like to love myself and like to give myself space in the moment to like just be where I am and not like be so hard on myself, which for that where it goes really hard in the sense of like trying not to work so hard and getting a little bit of sleep. Like I deserve sleep because I deserve like love in that sense. And that's what it seems to usually be is like more love and scared of death, which and it's just like the version of myself, I guess, that I'm clinging on to at the time is like I love that version of myself and like I have to kill it or let it die in order to get to the next version. So like the thing that it's like a weird paradox where I'm afraid to kill or let the part of me die because I want the love in which I have right now. But it's like the more I do that, the more love I attain, right? So that seems to be the two things in which keep coming up is love and death.
Oh my God, that's so good. But it's love and fear, right? Or
Yes,
that's
yes,
how
yes.
it comes through to me because as you're talking about it, I'm like, well, you're not really letting it die, it's transforming.
Very
But
much, yeah.
to that part, that little part that I feel like it all comes down to identity. And it's like ego death. But
Yes.
I don't know, ego death is such a funny term because it's one of those things that gets used a lot, and people sometimes say it and don't really explain it or don't really understand it or whatever. So it's kind of got this weird mystique around it. But like, I think ego death is just, yeah, the piece of us that we believe we are in the moment. And so much of our conscious mind believes it is that. And without that construct, it will cease to exist. And so, in a sense, it dies. But the thing is that we were never that anyway. So, it doesn't really die, it just transforms and we integrate like with the fullness of ourselves more completely, and it unlocks that love. But the fear of that little piece of ourselves that really thinks this is who we are, the fear is truly that intense, right? It's like, I'm going to die, I'm going to cease to exist. And it's a lot to deal with. Man, being alive as a human these days, hard. All
It's
day,
beautiful and hard.
days, but it is beautiful. You're right.
I remember I was listening to the episode that you just released yesterday, I think it was, about dragons and angelics. And like, I realized when I was listening to that, like when you were talking about like mastering the ego, I realized that I was just like attacking my ego like it was something like bad, in the sense that I was like, I need to transcend this motherfucker. But then like I wasn't making peace with it or being okay with it. And like I was just working, I was just driving around work, and I heard that and I was like, it clicked. I was like, I need to start being friends with my ego. Like it's gotten me to this place, and like there's nothing wrong with it. It's just like my animal instincts, and like and when it's mastered, like you said, like it can be used as a very good tool. It's like the idea of like thinking isn't a problem. It's just like the shit we get from thinking, like the stress or the fear or whatever the case. Like as long as we just let it pass, like as long as I just let my ego come out when I need to and just not let it run my life, then it's a lot more beneficial than sitting there being like, you need to fucking sit down, ego. I got shit to do. So transcend already.
Right. Totally. Totally. Yes. I mean, I love the ego. And I only got this download a year ago. Before that, I kind of was skeptical about this whole like you have to kill the ego or transcend the ego, but I didn't really fully get it. But last year I got this download and I've spent that whole time integrating it. And I'm like, ego is such a gift because it's the part of us that gets to experience being separate, which is if we weren't separate, we would not be able to have a free will creation experience. You know, we wouldn't be like, we are causal agents. We can do things here. We can do things. The thing you say to somebody has an effect, and we don't even know how far that effect runs before it pitters out, or if it, joins somebody else's effect and, like
100%.
creates a big snowball, right? It's just it's so magical. We're so powerful. So killing the ego or transcending it, to me, feels like, I don't know, it was seeded probably in the whole like spiritual new age community as a psyop to get us to constantly spin our wheels trying to overcome a part of ourselves that is actually like highly beneficial and one of the biggest gifts that we have, if only we can figure out how to harmonize with it and flow with it and dance with it. But it's a huge Achilles heel for us, because if we're not integrated in ourselves and we're still sort of being run by our trauma and our shadow, then the ego is that part of us that, turns into a douchebag, basically.
Yeah, can toxically manipulate, right? Like I've been having that actually come up too, is like knowing more so when my ego is taking the charge. And it usually comes back to, again, like fear. Like I'm not confident in what I'm talking about, whatever, to like 100% extent. So when somebody questions it, I'm like, oh, here comes the ego trying to be like, no, you're wrong, bro. And I just actually had a thought right now, which is powerful. I never correlated it like this, but like my wrestling persona, in a sense, is like my ego side. And like that's the part where like integrating the two and meshing of the two is crazy. I never even thought about that. It's like mind blown right there.
Totally, totally, totally. Oh my God, that's such an amazing analogy and illustration. Like, it is literal, but it's also beautiful for everybody who's listening who isn't a wrestler and can't like isolate, like, oh, this is the place that I've channeled my ego. This is the place that I've allowed it to be and express itself. And then I have another part. You probably do. Oh my God, you carry the dragon and the angelic,
Shit,
like
you know what's crazy?
activated right now.
That's crazy. When you said that yesterday in the podcast, I thought, I was like, do I have? And then I was like, am I being an egotistical fuck where I could think that I could have both of these things? It's like, shit, that you just blew my mind again.
Yeah. Yeah, you have it. It's so beautiful. But that's also the thing I was trying to say in the podcast too, is that like it sounds egotistical to claim it. It does feel edgy even for me, especially to like claim it to everybody who listens to the podcast. But it's not like some of us are so ultra special that we have these aspects. It's more like the more we awaken, the more these aspects of ourselves become accessible to us.
Yeah.
And I genuinely believe that even, the person at McDonald's who seems like the most asleep ever, like just totally in a trance, the ones that somebody would call an NPC, I just believe they're so fractured and fragmented from trauma that
Mhm.
they're like deeply, deeply asleep. But if they were to go through their own, which I think everybody will, their own awakening experience, like to the degree and depth of yours or mine, then they would be in touch with these aspects of themselves as well. We probably all carry angelic and dragon. I'm just not sure. Like I can't quite tell. I'm still, as I said, doing field research. But in a lot of people, I tend to see one more than the other, or like one sort of like more forward leaning.
Yeah.
But there have been a couple people that I've seen both integrated, and now I get to add you to that as well.
That's awesome. I totally feel what you mean though. Like everyone is in a sense like fragmented. And like for myself, there's no other reason or time in which I would even think about using drugs like meth, crack, or like whatever the
Right.
case. Like I was using those things just so I could strictly get away from myself. And that further just made me get away from myself. And that's all it was just like trying to escape. And once I was confronted with a hard, like, I can't go anywhere and I got to sit here and like learn myself, learn to love myself. Like that's all it is just sitting there and being forced to do it, right? And like nothing's gonna force you to do it aside from yourself. And like for myself, I'm stubborn as fuck. I'm not gonna do anything that anyone tells me to do. And like I have to experience all of it for myself. And yeah,
I
like when
think
you were
I
talking,
think that's a really good quality, honestly. I do. I know, like I'm similar. I know it drove my mom crazy because she would be like, just listen to me. I'm trying to give you like good counsel. I don't know, some of it was good, some of it was not. But I was like, but I have to live, like I have to experience it for myself. I can hear that what you're saying is probably logical, but how do I know until I try it? And I actually think that's a really good quality to have, because then you're not accidentally living according to somebody else's worldview. You're definitely living by your own, and hard earned all of your lessons.
definitely. That's one thing that I had when I was young too, is I would chameleon. Like no one likes any of the stuff I like. So obviously, because no one likes me, all the stuff that I like must suck. So I just got to latch onto somebody else and like the stuff they like, because obviously they know what's right and I don't know what's right, because I don't like myself and no one likes myself. Yeah,
Right.
something you were saying yesterday, again, back to the podcast, constantly referencing it, but like it was talking about, like you were talking about like every dimension and how they coincide with one and how they're equally as important. Like I feel like that's the thing that I'm learning right now with like opening my heart, is that everyone is needed to the exact level in which they are. No one is more important, no one is less important. We're all just exactly here. And it's like we all fill out the pie. And without one, like how would you know the difference of the other, right? Like I was at one point at the lowest of the low, again, like escaping myself. And it's like, who's to say that a person that is still there isn't as important as I was and doesn't have the exact same power? And like, it's all it comes from is just believing that you can, right? Like everybody had, that's why I feel like as long as you have belief and then you correspond your actions to align with that belief, then you can do literally anything. And that might sound crazy to a person who's like, you can't fucking do anything. You can't fly. And it's like, who's to say? We don't know shit, because we're just like, sorry.
Yes. 100%. I mean, that's the whole thing. Like, I also, it is an edge for me to be like, I think dragons are going to be flying through the air. And I think that we're going to onboard superpowers. But I actually do. I like, this has been, cycling around in my psyche behind the scenes for well over a year. And it's just an integrated belief that I have. And I believe that the reason we're not currently experiencing it, and it would sound crazy, is because not enough of us believe in it. But when enough of us believe that we can, like, actually believe that we can do, like, it's like quantum leap. It's not that it's not possible. It's just that if we don't believe it's possible, we can't experience it.
100%, right? I totally agree. And like for myself, I think that we can live far longer than what we've been told in which we can live. And the reason why we live that, like, is because by the time we're like 11, 12, whatever the case is, when we start to like comprehend thoughts or whatever, we're told that we're going to pass away around like 80. And it's like, I don't fucking believe that at all. I feel like we can go as long as we feel like we want to, as long as, again, it's accompanied with the actual full belief in yourself that you can do these things. And like, it might not be, again, like manifested like right now, but in time, I feel like that everybody with the saying like the Wolverine thing, like I feel like movies and shit they have a lot of like nuggets in them that tell us that's true, or like that's what's up, right? And I feel like that's something that we all have inside of us, because like there's no reason in which I was riddled with all the injuries that I had, and now I have zero pain, and like now I even go harder than I used to, and like no pain at all. That doesn't make any fucking sense. I know wrestlers that have been wrestling for half the time as me, and they're limping and they're hobbling, and it's like, dog, I'm perfect. I don't have a single pain in my body. It's just from
Yeah,
belief.
totally. And I agree. I think that as much as, like, it's so weird. Everything in this version of the hologram, or I don't know if it's the false matrix. I think it is, but I don't know. But everything it's both. It's like manipulation and disclosure. Like, so the same movie can have a manipulation in it, and at the same time disclosure, and we just have to parse out the two pieces. But I totally think that a lot of our movies place hold for us. And I don't mean disclosure so that they can get around the whole free will thing. There's that too. But I think we project into the movies pieces of truth about ourselves that we're not ready to bring into ourselves yet. And so it's like, we just keep watching it in the movies as we're like slowly inching our way closer and closer to being like, oh, it's me. Oh, I can do that.
Right? We are watching a movie, basically, like being
Yeah.
the experiencer, right? We're literally just watching, and that's the only thing that we have. I feel like we have necessarily control of, is a sense of like our emotions to the situation that we're in. It's like we can either flow with life, or we can linger on in a fear or a limiting belief, or what we just experienced and just sit there and like cling on to it, or we can surrender and let it flow and then get to the next part of the movie.
Yeah, totally. And like, surrender and flow sound so easy, and they are when you finally surrender, as you know, because you shared. But the build up to get to that breaking point where you finally surrender is fucking hard.
Shit
It's
sucks.
so hard. Yeah, it just sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the last 3 years, even though now I'm at a place where I'm extremely grateful for all the things that I've dealt with, and again, that's not to say that these things aren't going to continue to come up. I know they're going to continue to come up. That's the point of life. Like, I don't feel like we're ever fully integrated 100% in everything. But I lost my point there. What was I just talking about?
I think you were just saying, like, the last 3 years, you're really grateful for it
Yeah,
all.
so that's getting punched in the face all the time. But anyways, yeah, like the pain that I had to deal with in the moment, it fucking sucked. And like every single level that there was, I'm like, this is gonna last forever. This shit's horrible.
Yeah.
This pain sucks. I don't really want to face this. I don't want to face myself. But it's like when I come out of it, where like for the majority of it, I'm like, fuck, that was dope. I want to do it again. I want to get some more stuff.
Yeah, when you get to the other side and you're like, oh, let me do it again. But then when you are doing it again, you're like, oh God,
Yes.
so hard. Yeah, and that piece of when you're in the moment and you're submersed in the pain, and the scary part is like not knowing when it's going to end. And of course there's a part of our brain that convinces us it's never going to end. But even if you're at a place where you know, because you've done it enough times over and over, that it is going to end at some point, it's not knowing when. That is really hard.
Definitely is, right? We have to know what's going to come next instead of, again, like just surrendering to it. And like I feel like you get to a point where at the very top, I don't know if you said this, or I don't know where I heard this, but it's like you have a bunch of shit at the top of the mountain and you lop all that stuff off, and that's all the hardest stuff. And like after you learn how to get all the worst stuff, then the things underneath it, like it's the rock started to just fall off the mountain, and like the little things become easier because you know what to do. But it's getting through those first initial things, which can just be torture sometimes. It's like that's all the hardest stuff to work through.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny because sometimes it's like it's not even the biggest stuff, but it's because it's our very first time working through it that, it's like back to the point about ego death, the part of us that thinks that it is literally going to die as it, is integrated through the integration process. And in a way it does die, but also mostly just it's actually integrated. That part puts up a much bigger fuss. It's much louder because its fear is so real. It's so powerful.
Yeah, I very much agree. My ego, and like recently, I can tell because I'm starting to integrate it. And like yesterday was a huge moment in that. But like I can tell now that it's fighting me more than ever, trying to get to like that place where my brain is silent. And like it was crazy. Like last week was the first time, because I've lived a life of like a lot of trauma, a lot of worries. My brain has just lived on stress, or my ego's just lived on stress. But last week I was listening to some book, and like it just clicked to me, and like I knew that like it was calling to me to get to that place exactly right there. And I was just like, I went 24 hours without a single stress, and I'm like, this is crazy. What the fuck is going on? Like my brain is dedicated to other shit, and I'm not thinking about anything negative. And it was the first time I'd ever not had any stresses. And like now I kind of like came back a little bit because our brain is just trained to do things, or our body's just trained to do the things that it's done forever. But I'm starting to, like yesterday, like when I heard that, I was like, I need to make friends with my ego. I got to start like being happy that it's there. And like now I feel like my brain is getting even more quiet. And like that's the thing, is like it seems to be like more and more just getting to like silence almost, which is it's a beautiful place to be. And that's not to say things aren't going to come up, but like just the idea that my brain finally shut the fuck up. And like, because it knows I'm not sitting there like lingering, okay, like, oh, I'm sad, I'm going to think about this for 40 minutes now. And like that, now that that's not happening anymore, it's just kind of like quiet more so. And it saves my energy for so much more shit. And like that's one of the hardest things to do, right? Is like getting out of your fucking head. Like I've heard that the longest travel is from your head to your heart. And it's proven to be very exhausting sometimes, but so worth it, of course.
Absolutely. And I actually agree that like I think that the journey from your head to your heart is the journey for all of us to pass through that 5D barrier. And like, I really think that like for all the hype and the buzz about 5D, it's not the stopping place. It like this is the big tidal wave. Like, on what was that movie with Tom Hanks? Castaway. And he has to get over the first big wave at the edge of the reef. And it smashes him and humbles him. But then once he's over that big wave, it's actually fine. He's out. There's not 100 of those waves. It's just that one big one. I feel like that's what it is for us to get from our heart to our mind, to get from like 3D to 5D. Once you're in that heart space where you're connected to everybody from the heart space, and you can be an individual and like know, not just as a concept, but feel that we are all connected, like you have been talking about, then we have access to all the other dimensions as well. Not that they instantly integrate, maybe they do, maybe they don't, but it's just not such a long journey for any of the other ones. But there was something else I wanted to say about that. Oh yeah, it's like, I think the mind is kind of like a toddler that thinks that they want to be in charge, and they try and boss the adults and everybody around. But the more that they're actually like, you can give them a little bit of rope, just to sort of like make them feel, important and validated. But if you give them too much rope, they actually collapse under it because they're like, I'm not equipped to make these decisions. And they feel so much more secure when a trusted adult is like, it's okay, actually I'm in charge and I'm going to make this decision. And all of a sudden they kind of soften and stop fighting you. I think the mind is the same. So like your mind trying to bring you back into those trauma patterns is like, it's sort of like, not saying your mind is a toddler, but it's the same kind of thing where it's just like, I am not equipped to make these decisions, and we've been trained to make these decisions from our mind, and our mind is freaking the fuck out because that's not its role. The heart is in charge, and when we can sort of flip that, then the mind is like, oh, and calm down, and just notice the butterfly.
No, I very much agree. I feel like the heart is the, like, say, the mother, and the child is the brain, and the soul would be like the father, I guess, and like in union, right? Like the brain with the imagination or whatever, and then the heart leading with like okay, this is what we need to do. I know what's up. I very much agree with your description, and the castaway description was very 100% accurate. I totally agree. I'm going to use that.
Jordie, I feel like as you like work with integrating your angelic and your dragon aspect, I just feel like you literally are going to be unstoppable. Like literally, I'm so excited for you.
That means a lot. I mean, I feel more so every day that I'm stepping into my power, and I have felt very crazy a lot of the time when I tell people that from when I was 5 years old, and they'd be like, that sounds crazy. What do you mean you're going to be the biggest star in the world? Like, I don't know, man. It's the message inside me, and I'm not going to say it's going to happen. I'm not going to say exactly how it's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen, but that's what's telling me from inside my body. And like every day I feel more so that like it's my inner belief and strength comes out, and it makes me feel, and the word that keeps coming up to me is unstoppable. Like that's the thing I've heard for the last like 4 months. Like I hear it from everywhere, and like that's exactly what it feels like. And now I feel like for myself, like I don't, like, obviously like little deaths are hard to get past, but I feel like in the sense of like the big death, I'm totally fine with it. And like I love the idea of like just running toward it full force, like with whatever I truly believe, which is like whatever is true. And I don't give a fuck if I'm wrong, like help me be right. But like all I want to do is like find out what the deepest truth is, and just like live for that and die for that in a sense. So that's the thing, is like I know that what I'm here to do is just be the most powerful version of myself and believe in myself, and show those people around me that they can believe in themselves too, and be ready to die for whatever that fucking belief is.
I fucking love that. And I'm so glad that you came on because just what you said earlier about, comparing yourself before when you were doing drugs and you were just like, I'm in pain. I don't want to be alive. I don't want to feel it. I just don't, like, I'm totally lost. Totally. I don't know would you say that you were asleep?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. But I was making it more so just trying to I was trying to stay asleep. My body was probably trying to wake itself up. I didn't fucking having any of that.
Yeah, totally. Well, I think that's by design. I really, truly do. I think that the players that want to maintain their monopoly over this reality do everything they can to fill us with so much pain that it's like an electric fence. Like when when you don't want to go past it because you get like a bolt of pain, and you're like, and I'm just gonna go back, gonna recede back into my numbing behaviors, and I'm not even gonna try. But I feel like back to the person who is sitting there in McDonald's, and so easy for us to judge them, and they're sitting in like gross stained sweatpants with their butt crack hanging out and just looking like they're not awake at all, and so many people would call them NPCs and just completely disregard them, but they carry the exact same potential as you are exuding right now. Just like you said,
they just need love and understanding, right?
Yes. And they just awake right now. And like, we don't know when their awakening is going to be. We can't force it on them. We can't take them by the shoulders and shake them and demand that they wake up.
It's part of their sacred journey, right?
Exactly. But we can see them now and not contribute to their trauma by judging them. And just in a disregarding way, like I just feel that the human potential is so much more vast than we can even imagine. Even as you and I talk about being like limitless superheroes, it's still, I feel like we're only detecting the subtle edges of what we can actually do as humans. And there's so much available to us, and we're all moving in that direction. And that's all we need to really pay attention to. And all those people that feel like they're just NPCs or they're just dead weight, like, I just invite everybody who's listening, if you catch yourself thinking that way, I want to suggest number one, that I think that's also a psyop that is seeded into like sort of truther consciousness, so that it keeps us in a low vibration of judgment and like separation and polarity, kind of maintaining the like Masonic checkerboard grid of like red pill, blue pill, Republican, Democrat, conservative, liberal, left, right, men, woman, all that, so number one, is that even actually your thought, or was it a suggestion made to you that you latched onto? And then number two, if it is your thought, I just invite you to consider that that person is like like a crystal mine that has been untapped. That's how much potential there is in there. It's like a geode that has never been broken open. And the crystal side of somebody who is still asleep is like a wealth resource that we all get to share. But also, we're not going to treat each other like we're just resources to be exploited and crack people open just so we can have that, like, let's just hold each other as the precious, precious beings that we are.
That's 100%. That's one thing I've really been learning too, is like stop projecting my want to help people and just help myself, and then lead by example. Like the better I do for myself, the more awake and aware I become, the more people around me that aren't necessarily into spiritual shit or whatever the case, they start like, oh, how can I better myself? Like that's the thing, is when I stop telling people like, hey, you need to stop doing drugs, you need to stop drinking. These are the things that I did. Like when I would do that to like say my family, when I would have these little epiphanies, they'd be like, Jordie, I'm fucking closed off to your energy because you're just like going to tell me what to do energy. And who the fuck are you to think you're better than me? And it's like, you're totally right. I'm coming at you for my ego because I don't know shit. I'm just learning as I go. And like, yeah, I just want people to do better than me, or to do better and like rise up in the same sense. But it's like, really just shut the fuck up and do your own work. And eventually, if people want to like take from that or get inspired by that, then they will. Like that's the biggest part, right? Is like just you need to love yourself and show people that they need to love themselves. And I'm not saying you, I'm saying like that's the key, right? Is like love yourself and then love the people around you just the same, because we're all the exact same. So we all deserve the exact same amount of love and understanding. And I wish when I was in my lower forms, like everything is perfect and we're supposed to like happen. It's supposed to happen when it does. But I wish somebody would show me that love and understanding instead of being like, I'm going to affirm to you more so. And maybe it was just the algorithm that I was in of like, I don't deserve anything. So everyone around me would show me that I don't deserve anything. So that could very well be it too, right? But it's like just love and compassion and like, you can do this, bro. And then like, then once you get told that you can, then you start actually believing that you can, then you're unstoppable, right?
Totally. And like, I mean, I think it was your algorithm. I think that's literally how this place works. It was your algorithm. But what you're describing, number one, is the Christ consciousness in my understanding of it anyway. And I'm not an authority on anything, but is that, the parable of like, whatever, the saying he said about, teaching a man to fish versus like giving him a fish. So it's like, just do it for yourself, for your own sake, because you are worthy of it. Not, and then it shows other people that that is a possibility. And also we fucking rewrite the algorithm that way. So there's less of that shitty algorithmic stuff to reflect shitty things back to people. And that's still how the algorithm works. So they'll still, have that fed to them. But it's like, we are creating like a diversion in the algorithm where it's like, and sometimes bloop, somebody comes in who's like just on a like positive track and just talks to you like you're worth something. And, you can see that they know they're worth something, and that shit plants a seed for somebody, and that seed might not be ready to germinate for 10 years. Doesn't matter. Who cares? Time isn't even real. It's a fucking illusion. So like, let's just plant those seeds.
Yeah, I agree. Like for wrestling, that's a really big thing, especially for myself. Like it's so difficult in the sense that like you have to learn how to be out in front of the crowd You have to be able to like look at people in the eyes. Like I didn't even want to look at myself in the eyes. So that part's very difficult. You have to learn like the art of wrestling in itself. You have to learn like the stuff in the back. You have to learn like the pressures of being around people and politics, like everything else. So like that's extremely difficult. And like the thing that I like to offer, say to like they're called greenhorns, are rookies in wrestling. Like I try to like just like tell them like it doesn't matter what the fuck you do. You're just here to learn and like just believe that you're here to do the thing that you want to do, which was like get on a stage and perform. But like that's everyone like for that like there's so much difficult shit, and for myself it was so hard to get past that difficult shit because there's so many egos and they're fragile egos. I was like if so I translated the same to like life, where in like when I'm in wrestling I just tell people like nothing that you do essentially matters, in the sense that you're just trying to get better and no one's going to give a fuck because no one's going to remember what happened yesterday. It's just about you being here right now trying to get better with what you're doing. And like it's so like for myself, I can see it very easily with the outside world aside of wrestling. It's crazy how much it like translates to both of them. But like that right there showed me how much like understanding that it actually like can empower a person. Because like when you're in a match and you have all this like pressure on you, like, oh, if I fuck up, he's gonna hit me hard, or if I fuck up, the fans are gonna call me an idiot or whatever the case, then it just like self-fulfills the prophecy. But like if you're in there with somebody who's like, it's cool, man, I got you. If you fuck up, I got you. Everything's cool, I got you, right? Like when you're in that kind of energy, then it just makes it so much more easy to get out of your lower vibrational bullshit.
Totally, totally, exactly. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy in that way. It's like, maybe you do fuck up. It's okay. You like, you got you. And then
Being
other
one
people
with your
have you
fuck ups,
too.
right? Yeah, totally.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Jordie, this has been such a great conversation. I have absolutely loved talking with you. I feel like everything that you shared was so, so valuable and helpful. And Jordie is the moment maker. That is his wrestling name, which I think is
Moment taker.
oh, the moment taker. The
That's
moment
okay.
taker.
That's okay.
This whole time I was thinking it was the moment maker, but I was thinking like you make the moment. That when I first saw it, I was like, oh yes, he does. But okay, so you take the moment. Anyway, sorry everyone. And Jordie has a Facebook fan page, which I follow. So if you like Jordie's energy and you want to follow him and support him, we've got his Instagram in the show notes and his Facebook and his Facebook fan page. Thank you so much, Jordie, for being here. Thank you for sharing your story and your perspective.
Thank you for having me. It's been a long time coming. And now again, like I said, like I finally feel like I have more than 15 minutes of conversation to give someone before I'm like, oh shit, what do I say now? Now it's back to in my head. So yeah, it's been wonderful. And it's even shown me more so that I can get through something like this. Again, long time coming, and thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I would never know. I would never know that, like a year ago, 2 years ago, you felt like you didn't have enough voice to hold a good, long, in-depth conversation. So thank you. Well, that's a wrap. I truly hope that you enjoyed the episode and that you got some good activations, insights, and inspirations from what was shared today. I want to remind you that you can review the show on Apple Podcasts for a chance to win a free 45-minute Akashic Records reading with me to be shared on the show. Just remember to screenshot your review before you submit it and send it via email to amy@thenorthstarguidance.com to be entered into the monthly draw. I want to thank my Patreon members from the bottom of my heart for supporting this show. You guys, you cannot possibly know what your support means to me. Seriously. If everything else in my business had to be shut down, the podcast is the thing that I want to keep going, and your support means that it can keep going. On Patreon, I share bonus conversations, gifts from my guests, weekly dope-ass energy reports, quarterly group hug calls, and more. To become a supporter, use the link in the show notes and head on over to my Patreon. And I want to give a shout out to May, who edits all of these podcasts, as well as the Goddess Support team for all that they do to keep this operation running smoothly. Finally, I want to thank you, beautiful listener, for the valuable currency of your time and attention. I do not take it for granted. You are a powerful creator, and may everything in this podcast serve you in your highest creations. Your listenership means the world to me. Truly, truly. Without you, I would just be talking to myself. So, my beloved listener, have a beautiful day or night wherever you are, and I will catch you on the next episode.